With that, I will call this meeting to order. This is the General Plan Advisory Committee meeting of January 8th, 2026. When I go through your last name, just let us know that you're here. Bailey.
Here.
Brown. Here. Comachero. Here. Elliott.
Here.
Evantov.
Here.
Flores.
Here.
Joyce.
Here.
Kingsburg. He actually has an excused absence. Lecters.
Here.
Lieberman. Luker.
Here.
Marine.
Here.
Monroe.
Here.
Kazada. Tiss.
Here.
Vadra Kajur.
Here.
Valdez.
Here.
And Wilson.
Here.
Very good. Let me start by saying Happy New Year to everyone and welcome back. Glad to see you all again. We're going to start with public comments. I have 2 speaker slips. And the first speaker is Dennis Fitz. Come on up to the podium.
Is this on? Yep. Okay. Yeah, my name's Dennis Fitz, 31420 Calle Girasol in Temecula. And when I moved here in 1991, we were zoned for half-acre lots. Currently, we're zoned at 2.5 acres, okay? And that's what I want to discuss today because things have changed a lot since 1991. The last time the city went through and we had a number of public meetings with all the residents that were interested who had the 2.5 acre zoning, we came to a vote and we were voting on 1 acre, half acre, 3/4 acre, or leave it as it is. And what happened is that the vote was really split. About 90% wanted denser zoning, but the other 3 were just split kind of evenly, so the city or whoever was in charge decided, well, we'll just leave it as it is because no one's decided on any specific one. I'd like to revisit this. I think it is time for us to have denser zoning. Most of the residents want it. I know my neighbors do. I really don't care. I'm really kind of representing some of them that I've talked to. But we'd like to have another vote on this, if possible, and have a ranked sum where you vote, you put your best 4 choices down, and you know how it goes. You know, the one that comes up with 50% wins. If not, you go through and you drop the last one and you add the others. And that way, you can come to a consensus if you're going to vote on 4. Or just vote on 2 or 3, but you vote on 4, and it's hard to get 50% for anything. So that's what I want to discuss. I hope you take this up in your discussions for this general plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Lee Rosu.
Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. Unfortunately, I'm the only HOA, Los Ranchitos representative today, but I'd like to speak for everybody. It's a new year, and I wanted to remind you that we, in the general plan, the Inez Road and De Portola Road go through our neighborhood, and it's under the current general plan is set to be widened to 4 lanes from 2. We do not believe that's a good setup or an upgrade for our community from a safety perspective. It certainly is a downgrade. I'm hoping that you're going to reconsider this. I know you're looking at the future of Temecula for the next 20 years or so, but keep in mind the older neighborhoods that might be impacted by your decisions. And I'm sure that if you look hard, you're going to find other ways to move traffic without impacting heavily the safety of communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers? If not, then we'll move into committee business. The first item is welcome and introductions. Again, welcome. Tonight's topic is economic development. If you'll recall, at the last meeting, we discussed circulation and mobility. Tonight, we'll be discussing economic development, and then in February, we'll be coming back and having a conversation about land use. So with that, I'll introduce Amanda Tropiano, our General Plan Consultant from De Novo.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are excited to really do a deep dive into the topic of economic development with you. We're going to have a series of presentations, 2 of which will be presented by City of Temecula staff. And then we also have a presentation from our specialists that really focus specifically on economic development and market research as part of the general plan team, with a group called Economic and Planning Systems. And we've got 2 of my colleagues here that will be leading that portion of the presentation, Julie Cooper and Andrew Williams. And so we are excited to kind of have their deep insight and knowledge into that special topic area. But with that said, we're going to start with the presentation from the city, and then EPS will do their portion of the presentation. We'll have 1 more from the City of Temecula, and then we're going to facilitate a discussion as a group. So we'll stop and pause for questions after each individual presentation and make sure that we get those answered.
Very good. I'd like to introduce Betsy Lowry. She's the assistant to the city manager, and she's going to give us a presentation. The city recently conducted a community survey with True North, and Betsy's going to summarize the results.
Thank you. So, good evening. As you said, I'm assistant to the city manager. My name is Betsy Lowry, and I also oversee citywide communications and economic development for the city of Temecula. I've lived in the city of Temecula for 32 years, most of my life, and I've proudly worked for the city of Temecula for 20, starting as a planner. I've branded the first slide as our own. Here, I've Temecula-fied it, and I'll weave in a few Temecula-fied slides, but to keep it interesting. The reality is the citizen survey was not conducted by the city. It was conducted by True North Research, and so I'll be using their brand for most of the presentation. Our consultant, True North Research, specializes in working with cities in California as well as other type of public agencies, and have designated and designed and conducted over 1,500 research studies for public agencies, with more than 500 for California cities. True North conducts a survey for the city of Temecula about every 4 years. The survey was done in 2025, a few months ago. Their surveys are statistically valid, and they use a secure type of methodology that ensures the answers are from city of Temecula residents. What I find fascinating is their margin of error is reported to be about 2.9%, or 2.9 give or take, with a 95% level of confidence. So they asked our residents to name 1 or 2 things they liked most about living in the city of Temecula. This was an open-ended question, meaning True North did not present the list as you see here on the screen. Can you read that? I hope so, as you see on the screen. But residents shared what they like in their own words, and then they were categorized. So ranked at the top is our public safety, low crime, cleanliness of the city, our schools. They also enjoy our parks shopping, which is great for economic development. Most of our retail tax revenue is through retail, most of our revenue is through retail tax revenue. And some express the very characteristics that make Temecula unique, and that were implemented in our original general plan. And that is the aesthetic beauty and landscaping of our city, preserving and growing the wineries and vineyards, our open space and mountainous landscape. From an economic development perspective, these unique characteristics set Temecula apart from the other cities, and we attract 3.3 million people to Temecula every year to shop here. Temecula's unique appeal attracts big businesses as well to invest. CEOs want a clean, nice place, comparatively, and also comparatively, we're an affordable city. In terms of housing, Temecula is more affordable than San Diego and Orange County. So those are the things that our residents say they like most about our city. And that tracks with their reason to move here. When asked for their reason moving to Temecula, good schools and affordable housing again, compared to San Diego and Orange County, where many of our residents have come from. Housing in Temecula is actually affordable. Here they also mention clean and well-maintained city, wine country, wineries, beautiful area. While this is a resident survey, these are important characteristics of why Temecula attracts visitors. We're a tourism destination, and truly we are a beautiful destination. So here's my Temecula-fied slide here. So today the mayor gave a presentation to about 100 residents. I know Denise was there and probably some others, and discussed the importance of being forever mindful of the aesthetics throughout our city and in our sphere, preserving our unique identity as the heart of Southern California wine country, preserving the equestrian charm of areas within and adjacent to the city and in wine country. This also means landscaped medians and roadways. I love that Butterfield Stage Drive Road, you guys, that's just a Google picture, and look how beautiful it is. The reality is beautification goes hand in hand with economic development. Temecula's preserved character is why tourism is a $1.3 billion industry in Temecula Valley. Right, Annette? So if the city government could change one thing to make Temecula a better place to live now and in the future, what would you like to see, is what was asked. And here again, this was an open-ended and question, and then True North groups them into categories you see here. The top on the list was reducing traffic congestion and limiting or reducing growth and development in the city of Temecula. So looking at the top 5, the typical reduced traffic roads in this year's survey, but in this year's survey, the limit reduced growth development moved up significantly from 2021, rising to second place at 18%, placing it in the top 5. By the way, we can take it as a compliment if residents cannot think of anything they would like to change. We take it as a compliment when residents say they cannot think of anything they would like to improve in Temecula, and that comment has made it in the top 5 last couple surveys. So overall resident satisfaction. How satisfied or dissatisfied are residents with the job the city is doing to provide city services? This can be thought as an overall performance rating for the city. What you see here on the left is in 2025, we had 82% of the residents telling us that they were satisfied with the city's overall performance in providing municipal services. That is really similar in terms of their overall satisfaction in 2021 of 83%. The next 2 slides, True North drilled down into 27 specific service areas. And I'm going to give you the link to the report. You can drill down yourself. I won't do that here. But they're broken into 2 tiers just to make it easier to read on the screen. But you can see here that this top tier, you have at least 83% of respondents say that they are satisfied with the city's efforts. For one of the services, one or all of the services here on this list, from library services, I can't believe it, but our library is very, very popular, to crime rates. So, I mean, I can believe it, but it ranked number 1. So as you go down the list, you start to see the satisfaction levels tail off, and at the bottom for things like managing residential growth in the city and addressing homelessness. So those are the least 2 satisfied areas. So you've noticed we've done some work on the I-15 with reference to the new lanes that we completed earlier this year on northbound I-15. 55% noticed a reduction in traffic congestion on I-15 northbound driving from San Diego to Temecula. We will definitely need another survey soon because those concrete barriers were put up right after the French Valley Parkway opened up, because Caltrans is now building aux lanes, and those will be done in just a few months. So it'll be wonderful on our freeway very soon. I think 100% will notice. So generally speaking, are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the city's efforts to improve traffic circulation by improving roads and intersections, implementing traffic calming measures, et cetera? And as you can see here, that in this cycle, in 2025, we actually had about 2/3 of residents say yes, they were satisfied, and that's a slight uptick from 2021. So as far as traffic goes, we're doing a little better than we were in 2021. Not bad. almost done here. So, but retail, by far, specialty organic food like Whole Foods still remains on the top most desired type of store the residents would like to see located in Temecula. With the following type of stores tied in the second place, high-end department stores like Nordstrom and sporting goods, Bass Pro, REI. Furniture and home decor like IKEA, Bed and Bath, Crate and Barrel, and upper scale trendy clothing stores like Ann Taylor's are ranked at 11. Here's another Temecula FIDE. So I had this slide handy. I thought it would be more fun than looking at a number, but just a fun fact from the citizen survey that nearly 70% of residents visit Old Town at least once a month or more. So I'm sure we just got through the holidays, but look how beautiful we decorate in Old Town, and all the businesses do as well. Funding priorities. Okay, so these are spending priorities that residents picked from a list, and they prioritize the top 5 as being maintaining city streets, parks, public facilities, infrastructure, making infrastructure improvements to improve traffic circulation, advocating at the state and federal level to improve traffic circulation on I-15, tied with providing fire protection and paramedic services, and then providing police and crime prevention services. At the very bottom, residents were least apt to desire for funding for additional park and ride lots, and with a comparatively high percentage overall, 32%, you see that red area second to the bottom, indicating that the city should not spend any money at all to encourage the development of affordable housing subsidized with taxpayer funds. And finally, I'll end with the website where you can read the full citizen survey. And while not on the survey, I'd bet 100% of our residents surveyed would agree that the city of Temecula should keep elevating, enhancing our city. And by doing so, we will continue to enjoy rankings such as top best places to live by Money Magazine, within the 15th safest cities in the US, with over 100,000 population by Forbes magazine, and several other rankings not listed here, but we are on the map. And while wine country is not in the city, it's in our general plan, our current general plan, and it's our city's tagline. We own it, the heart of Southern California wine country for economic development. It is a significant part of Temecula's 1.3 billion industry every year based on visitor spending. And so that ends the citizen survey. Let me know if you have any questions.
So I think now we can open up to the committee. If you have any questions, any comments, we can do a roundtable and before we move on to the next item. So the intent of sharing that is the city does the community survey, we'll just say every 3 or 4 years, and it's kind of like the report card. How are we doing? And it's also intended to ask some basic questions about what can we improve on. So Betsy shared that. Hopefully you found it informative. If you want to do a deeper dive, Betsy provided the link, but I think we can just go around the table, see if anyone has any comments.
You know, I've seen a lot of these surveys over the years, and we've always prided ourselves on the fact that the results were astounding. They're very good now. They're not astounding. What do you attribute that to? What's changed?
Who are you asking?
Anybody who wants to answer?
So what's changed? You know, I think when you're a growing city, you're a new city, things are shiny and new. In community development, we have code enforcement, and I work with our code officers quite a bit. And I think the first 10, 20 years, code enforcement in the city was kind of easy. I think the officers would say that because, again, everything is new. And I think as the city develops and builds out and starts to age a little bit, people notice. And I think that's why it's really important that the city continues to try to maintain and improve what it has. And I think that's our challenge is the original general plan was really a growth document. The city was growing very quickly, and I think this update we're transitioning from a growth city to a maintenance city. And I think as we go through that transition, that's the reason you're seeing some different numbers.
Do you see any changes in demographics? And I don't know the numbers, but I mean, looking at my own family, we've been here for 35 years or more, whatever. And our kids were born here, and now they're grown and have their own families. And the way we look at things, my wife and I, in terms of what we like and what we'd like to see in the city and all, has really changed, over the years because our lives have changed. And I don't know if we're indicative of a lot of others, or if it's more a question of new families moving in. Obviously, it's Southern California. It's always going to be a transient society, but just interesting to see. Might be worthwhile taking a look at the demographics as compared to some of these statistics.
Yeah, I imagine we'll get into some of the demographics, some of the changes, and some of the growth scenarios in future meetings.
I just wanted to comment on the homelessness. I know that's a big concern for everybody throughout the years, but personally, I'm one of those people that are always on the app, and I've noticed a significant change, and I want to thank the city because they seem to be doing a great job with that.
Yeah, appreciate that. And if you don't have the app, please download it and please use it. It's very easy to use, and we're responsive.
I have a comment, and thanks, Betsy, for the presentation. But, if you look at Temecula, as opposed to a lot of other cities in Riverside County, even San Diego County, it doesn't surprise me. Low crime, cleanliness, good schools, attractions, family-oriented, affordable housing. Plus, you've got attractions like Wine Country, Old Town, Pachanga. Yeah, we've got a traffic problem, but I mean, we saw that coming years ago because of growth. But I think this is a great place to live. I've lived here for 36 years, raised my kids. All 4 of them moved away, and 3 of them came back. So I think that there's a big opportunity in this area, especially because of the affordable housing and all of the other elements that go with it that make Temecula a very attractive place to live. There's always going to be problems, but I think that's one of the reasons why we're here.
And I might just add an answer to our former mayor, Comachero, and what has changed. And you always told us, never rest on your laurels. And that is a quote from you I must have heard many times, and I think that's important moving forward.
So I've only been here 4.5 years, and I agree. It's a great place to live, and much of the survey resonated. I think there's a point of incongruence, though, and it's following your comment, Annette, about the homeless dynamic. First of all, the word address, I think, is something we need to talk about, because that is a passive term. But there's incongruence between the desire to, quote unquote, address the homelessness issue and the unwillingness to invest in affordable housing and low-income housing resources. So there's some work for us to do around that, because housing is one of the fundamental solutions to the root cause of homelessness. So I would just invite us to consider that as we're moving forward.
Tammy?
Betsy, it kind of went by quickly, but I wondered if you could clarify the comment that you made about affordable housing. And I wondered the context of the question, because it looked as though people were not supportive of government investing in affordable housing, and I wondered if that's because they didn't believe in a government funding housing in general, or if it was because of traffic infrastructure and the things that come with higher density.
I think that's a great question. I'm trying to find that
You talked about
slide.
taxpayers being responsible for it.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Residents do want affordable housing, but they don't want government to pay for it, and that is the context. It was clarified in the, where is that slide? Oh, here it is. Yes, encourage, so funding priorities, it's at the bottom. This was a list of items that they had to choose from, and the lowest two bottom, the bottom one is build additional park and ride lots for carpoolers. And then the second least was encourage development of affordable housing subsidized with taxpayer funds.
Okay, and
Not nonprofits.
can I just add a comment on that? Just to, for folks to ponder. I agree that government funding isn't always the best source of supporting certain types of programs. And I believe in the community support of those nonprofit organizations and organizations that are trying to serve. But housing is so expensive that it is very difficult, and developers don't make the return on investment on affordable housing, and so I just add that to the conversation because that's probably not in the context of the question and how people perceive what the real problem is.
Right, I understand.
You know, while we're talking about affordable housing, I think, and I've thought this for a long time, we need to get creative. You know, we need to get out of our classic, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but our classic government box. And this is the way you do it. And well, it doesn't always work. And you know, I'd love to see us, for instance, encourage private development to come in and build almost like college dorm type, reasonably high rise. I don't even want to go too high. You know, where we can keep high school and college kids here and they can afford to live without going somewhere else looking for housing. It's just things like that. We don't do enough brainstorming. We just kind of take a look at what's been there always and can we make that work instead of finding new ways to solve the problems that we might have. I'll get off my soapbox.
No, stay on it, definitely. I just wanted to add, I think our questions tonight is going to bring us a lot to affordable housing and ways that we can think outside of the box for that, because being a realtor, we don't have a lot of affordable housing here. And I like the idea of dorms or just studio apartments. Is when I first graduated from college and I wanted to get out of mom's house, I stayed in a studio apartment and it was just good enough for me. I can afford it. And you're giving them some type of independence. And I don't think we have studio apartments here in Temecula, so that would be a great start.
I
Yeah.
would just add to that, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just with families that I deal with at my church, especially young families, not even just ones that move out right away, but even, you know, the young couple with one baby or something. It's like almost virtually impossible to get into an apartment because they have to have so much money down. They have to make so much more than the actual rent payment, and it's just unaffordable. So we say it's affordable, but then again, maybe for us, but for younger families that are just coming out, trying to stretch their wings, and they're trying to get a job and maybe making 23, 24 bucks an hour if they're lucky, it's not happening. So definitely, I like that idea. ADUs are another option. I think those are a great option for people to have in their home, to be able to, you know, maybe push through code enforcement or whatever to make those things happen with people. They can have, you know, multiple families living on their home if they have the property space for it. I think those are all great. On a side note, I think we should all vote tonight for the building of Bass Pro Shop in Temecula.
And REI. Based on some of the comments we're hearing, I think just a note for Amanda, our consultant, I think at the next meeting when we discuss land use, we might want to touch on some of the new state laws that will contribute to affordable housing. There's density bonus, there's ADU law, there's SB 9 urban lot splits. There are things on the books that the city has incorporated and updated our development code to help facilitate these types of developments. And I think we can show a few examples. So I think that'll be good.
If I don't mean to rail on the city here because I love you guys, you know that, but I was working with a really high caliber developer, not from this area, wanting to do a mixed use project in the where Target is, in that back area that's all condemned, and they had a beautiful plan and they really wanted to do it, and eventually they pulled out because they just felt it was taking too long and too much red tape, and you know, we all know you have to do some things. I mean, you can't just abandon all the regulations. But working more collaboratively with a developer like that, that would have been a great enhancement to that particular area. And you know, creating more affordable housing in a spot like that where you've got all the shopping, you've got walking, you're not putting people on the road, just seemed to make all the sense in the world. I was really sorry to see that go by the wayside.
Just one last question. I appreciate what you just said, Matt, and I look forward to that discussion. And I did want to say that the city is very assertively trying to look at tools and utilize them, like density bonus and some of the other things that help support affordable housing. So I wanted you to know that from my perspective, that definitely the city embraces that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember when SB 9 came out a couple years ago, and the city imposed moratorium a couple of times to prevent those applications, and then adopted some revisions to the development code that made them harder to do. You know, the whole idea of Senate Bill 9 was to facilitate housing, duplexes, urban lot splits, but Temecula made it tougher. I mean, the bill should stand alone by itself. It didn't need additional regulation, but Temecula did it. It made it harder. So then I asked myself, you know, is Temecula housing friendly? I mean, are they trying to impede housing? And I asked ChatGPT, is Temecula housing friendly? And you know, the answer is not really.
Sorry, I'm going to add on that, Matt, too. I think Temecula's study for the SB 9 was based on a lead agency, WRCOG, that kind of took a look at it overall for the entire region. So it's not just Temecula, it's every city in Riverside County and Riverside County. And this is an interesting fact that I found out 2 weeks ago as I'm trying to process an SB 9 split for a family who desperately needs it. Riverside County has achieved exactly 2 of these since the inception of this law and the Senate bill in 2018. That's pathetic.
And that's in the county.
That is in the county.
Yeah, and I just finished, well, a couple of years ago, I did one when the bill first came out. I did one in Fontana, urban lot split, you know, no CEQA, no hearing, you know, a simple parcel map, building permits, and the map was recorded, the land value went up, landowners could borrow, and they built 2 units, and they've been rented for, you know, a year and a half now. So it was a simple thing.
I think we can dive into SB 9 a little more at the next meeting.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think, you know, a lot of the conversation we're going to have tonight on economic development, certainly starting off with this kind of broad overview of satisfaction in the city, and then a little deeper dive as we get into some of the nuts and bolts of the history of economic development here and what some opportunities are. It's really a 2-part conversation with next month's conversation on land use planning. So don't feel like you need to hold those questions back tonight. You can certainly ask them. In some cases, we may suggest that we're going to dive deeper into that topic next month, and I'm taking notes to make sure we cover it. So it's okay to keep talking about kind of the development side of things. Tonight's really to set the stage and lay the foundation for a common understanding of what some of those opportunities and challenges are, not just on the residential development side, but also on commercial real estate and issues related to institutional development and things like that. So with that, we're going to move on to our next part of the conversation. We'll certainly have a time to wrap up as part of just a general discussion here. We'll make sure that we get through those conversations tonight, so we're really ready to continue that conversation next month. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our team from EPS. And the presentation is going to include a lot of information. We can provide it to you electronically following tonight's meeting if you want to go back and kind of review it. So I always find these parts of the assignment really illuminating. I'm going to ask you the most surprising thing you heard in their presentation. So if something pops up, feel free to take a note or try to remember which comment they've said, so we can kind of dive deeper into that as part of our group discussion.
No pressure. Good evening. Again, my name is Julie Cooper. I'm a principal with Economic and Planning Systems, EPS. I'm here with my colleague, Andrew Williams. And we, again, are going to be presenting this evening on some analysis that we've completed looking at demographics, socioeconomic trends in the city, as well as real estate market trends. Just a little bit about our firm. We are a land use economics consulting firm. We've been around a bit over 40 years with 4 offices, 3 in California and 1 in Denver. And we, among our many practice areas, do a lot of work on planning documents such as general plans. I've probably worked with Amanda on about 10 general plans over the last few years. So we're excited to be involved in this effort with all of you. Why do we talk about economics in general plan? We see that economics is interwoven with all the other elements of a general plan, with land use, with housing, mobility, municipal services. All of those things are affected by and affect the factors that are associated with economic success, your regional competitiveness, your quality of life, and a positive business climate. And so making sure that the goals and policies of these other elements are looked at through an economic lens, as well as developing an economic development element that takes these other elements into account, is what we see make sure that the city can promote long-term economic resiliency and vibrancy into the future. So again, this particular piece of our work within the existing conditions phase of the general plan involves us evaluating both local and regional demographic and real estate market trends and looking at what is the city's role within the market context. We use that information to identify certain opportunities and challenges, particularly those that could be addressed through land use and other general plan related policies that can, again, help to promote economic development in the city. So as it says here, these findings will both, will be using internally within the consulting team to help inform the land use plan, and then will inform the economic development element that we'll be writing later on in the process. In terms of understanding your geographic competitiveness or your regional competitiveness, we have looked at these metrics both in the city, in a trade area, which encompasses 4 of your neighboring cities, as well as, in some cases, the French Valley CDP. And then we also compare that to the Riverside County as a whole and trends within the larger county. With that, I'm going to turn over to Andrew to kick us off with our data on demographics and housing.
Hello, good evening. I'm Andrew. Yeah, so I will give us a brief overview of demographics and housing, starting with population growth. Overall, we've seen modest growth in the city since 2015. A couple notes, from 2020 to 2023, we do see a decline in the city population. But looking at DOF data year to year, we see that the city is actually increasing in population right now, but just some good context to know. Overall, number of households has continued to grow, while the household size has also shrunk, which is an interesting kind of tidbit. Comparing it to the trade area and county as a whole, we do see the trade area and the county growing at a faster rate. Moving on to population projections. This data is from SCAG. So as a whole, we see population and employment growing through 2050. The trade area and the county are again seeing a faster growth rate in terms of employment and population. Recent trends and future projections reflect the city's more built-out land use relative to the surrounding areas in the trade area. And looking at housing, next few slides, sort of tenure and type. So looking at the city, comparing it to the trade area and the county, we do see the city has lower vacancy rates, a higher proportion of rental units. And we look at growth compared to the trade area and the county, we see a slower growth rate, about 8% of total net units compared to the trade area, around 20%, in the county around 10%. Looking at single-family housing prices, we do see a much stronger sale price in the city, about 15% higher than the trade area and about 35% higher than the county. We also see prices beginning to stabilize as of 2022, which was after a pretty significant and steep rise during the pandemic era. As a whole, between all geographies, we do see home ownership rising. We see some similar trends in terms of multifamily housing, where multifamily housing rents have stabilized in the past few years, where there was also a steep increase in the past 5 or 6 years. Rents in the city are pretty similar across the trade area and are about 25% higher than the county. Looking at these stabilized rents and an increasing vacancy in recent years, it suggests multifamily support is starting to meet current demand. I'll pass it back to Julie for the employment.
Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about the sort of the population and housing dynamics, we're going to talk about employment, and this is employment both of your residents as well as those who work in your city. So what we're interested in really is seeing how those two populations compare in terms of what type of jobs they're working in and where they're working. So this shows the industries in which residents are employed. I apologize that the font is a little small, but the general takeaway is that that residents are not really very heavily concentrated in any one industry. There's a pretty broad range of industries that residents are employed in. There are certain industries that have grown more significantly in terms of employing residents in the past decade. In particular, we call out here transportation and warehousing, construction, accommodation, food service, management, and healthcare. Moving on to the jobs in the city, we see that your key industries, probably unsurprisingly, are accommodation, retail, and then healthcare, which is really a growing industry countywide.
Going back on the last slide, what's your source?
This is LEHD data, which comes from the census.
It's not from EDD?
It's not from EDD, no.
Did they actually break us out in our own little MSA?
Does the
Did
census?
they break us out in
this
our
is
own little?
city. This is city-specific data from the census.
From the census?
Yes, it's from a source called LEHD, Longitudinal Employment, Housing Dynamics, something. Yeah, there's a very nifty website called On the Map. So I would suggest you check it out. I will note that this data is a little dated from LEHD. It's a couple of years old, so it's not necessarily reflecting current information, but it's 2003 data, or 2022 data.
Cool. I'll have to get that website.
Yes, On the Map. It's a great one. Yeah, and then looking at jobs again, talked about your key industries. There are a few industries where the city's been losing jobs, in particular, as called out here, arts and entertainment, manufacturing, and trade, the wholesale trade. So going into this dynamic between who's living in the city, who's working in the city. So Temecula is a strong employment center. You have a jobs to household ratio of well over 1, which means you have a lot more jobs than you have households. And you can see here that you have almost 10,000 more, about 10,000 more people who commute in to the city for jobs here than you have residents who commute out for jobs elsewhere. So you are, again, a very strong employment center within the region. We also take those two graphs that we showed at the beginning and we compare them. And this gives us what we call export-import. So we look at what are the industries where you have more residents employed than you have jobs in the city, and what are the industries where you have more jobs in the city than you have residents employed in them. And so what that suggests, it's not a perfect science, but what it suggests is that there are certain industries where people who work here, who live here rather, they can't find jobs in the industry that they want to work in, so they have to commute out for them. Alternative, on the flip side, you have businesses here who can't find workers who live in the city to work in those jobs. So they're bringing people in from other places to work in those jobs. So up at the top here, these are the sort of the export industries. So where you see you have more residents working in those industries than you have jobs in the city in those industries. And in general, we would say that these are, not all, but many of them are what we would consider to be higher wage jobs, as compared to the jobs where you are heavily importing workers from other places, such as retail and accommodation, which we generally consider to be lower wage jobs. So what this suggests to us is that there actually could be a really strong opportunity for the city to attract jobs and businesses in some of these higher wage industries that are employing your current residents. Just to get a little bit more into into this dynamic, we looked at what are the top places that your residents commute out to, and what are the top places where you have workers who are coming in from other places. So among the top 10, or really among the top 5 destinations for residents are some of the larger cities in the region: San Diego, Riverside, Los Angeles, and Irvine right there at number 6. So these are pretty long commutes that people are making from here to jobs in major metro areas. On the flip side, the top 5 locations for workers in your city are within your trade area, basically: Murrieta, Menifee, French Valley, Lake Elsinore, and then Hemet. So this sort of really relates to the point that Betsy was making, which is that because there's a bit of because there's a relative affordability here compared to major metro areas, you have residents who are willing to trade off those long commutes to, those certain higher wage jobs in major metros so that they can live here. So now we're going to talk relatedly about your commercial real estate sector and how that relates to some of these other dynamics.
So we're going to be looking at retail, office space, hotels, and industrial flex. But if we look at the city as a whole, we do see that industrial flex is the biggest land use, with a little under half of the land use we see here on the screen, followed by retail. Additionally, recent analysis completed for the city suggests there is an opportunity to further grow this industrial and flex space while also strategically repositioning retail space. And in the next couple of slides, we're going to see a couple themes. So one, we'll see the city as a whole having a disproportionate amount of the inventory in the trade area, so it's outperforming other cities in the trade area. So we'll see that for most of the land uses. And we'll also see the trade area growing at a faster rate in terms of its inventory in the last 10, 15 years. So if we look at retail, for example, we see that about 40% of the current inventory in the trade area, the city hosts that. However, there's a pretty high or fast growth rate in the trade area of about 11%. So we see that the city's going to be experiencing competition from retail currently and likely in the future. In terms of office, we'll see a similar trend where the city has 55% of the office inventory, and again, and also 10% of the county inventory, which is a fairly significant number, but we'll see a higher growth rate in the trade area, so increasing competition. We also see that rents vacancies are pretty consistent between the city, trade area, and the county. To Julie's point a few moments ago, the city could explore opportunities to align this office use with residents in the city looking forward. And then looking at industrial flex space, again, the city hosts more than half of this trade area inventory, and we see a pretty steep growth rate in both the trade area and county, which is to be expected. Still, we think the city's well-positioned to capture regional demand for transportation and warehousing space and jobs. And I think one more, hospitality. This is a little different compared to the other land uses. So we see the city has over a third of the total hotel rooms in the trade area and about 2/5 of the total hotels. And we see a faster growth rate in the city compared to the trade area. Additionally, there's an additional 300 rooms that are going to be brought online in Old Town, which would add to this. So with this, we think recent projected hotel growth could really help drive demand for retail and businesses, particularly in specific areas, notably in Old Town. I'll pass it back to Julie.
Thanks, Andrew. So this is our last slide before our conclusion. So the city has actually recently had 2 major studies done that relate to this analysis that we have completed. One was completed early last year by Kaiser Marston Associates, and that was an update to a study they had done, I think, maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago? Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Not that long ago, eight or so years ago. And they did an update to that. And what they were looking at in their study was comparing the development capacity that the city has. So that is, of your zoned vacant land or maybe underutilized land, how much of it is left to develop under your current land use plans or your current zoning. And then they also made some assumptions about, given recent trends in different land uses, how much of that development could actually be absorbed in the next 20 years. And so what their analysis found was that the city would be, if you totally built out your capacity, you would be undersupplied in potential industrial use, hotels, and kind of office, although that's almost like a break-even number. Where you would be oversupplied would be particularly in retail. There's a lot more capacity for retail development in the city than there is likely to be absorbed. And then again, with housing, it's almost break-even, but a little bit oversupplied. So So this is just to give some additional context. It relates very much to the conclusions that we have made from our analysis in terms of where your real opportunities are, which again are really in industrial, we think, office to a lesser extent, and then with residential, there's going to be demand, so it's just really more of a question of what is the typology that's going to be developed that's going to best meet the demand that you're going to have into the future. There's another study that was done more related to your retail sector, and I think that's going to be discussed after our presentation, so we won't get into that right at this moment. So these are our key takeaways from the data analysis that we completed. As mentioned at the beginning, your growth trajectory, while still growing, is slowing, and again is reflective of your relatively built-out nature compared to the subregion and the larger county. Your housing prices are regionally relatively high, which suggests that people want to live here and that there is opportunity to develop more and to provide more supply. At the same time, as we talked about, it is relatively affordable compared to other major metros in the larger Southern California region, Riverside, Los Angeles, San Diego. And so while you are a regional job center, you're not really a job center for your residents who are trading off these long commutes. So we see that as an opportunity area. Other opportunity areas are kind of thinking about diverse housing products, and this relates to the conversation that you all were having before our presentation. How can you use your development capacity for residential to serve a spectrum of household types and income levels into the future so that you can serve both those residents who are in those higher wage jobs, maybe some of the workers in your city who can't afford to live here, some different ideas where you could provide a diversity of housing opportunities. Again, industrial development has been very strong in the Inland Empire. We expect it will continue to be a relatively strong sector, and that given your location, that it is a growth opportunity for the city. We mentioned businesses in some of these higher wage and higher skill industries. And then repositioning of your retail zones with a focus on strategic growth, or growth in strategic areas, rather. And again, not to get too much into that, because that's going to be discussed more in the next presentation. So these are some thought questions. You don't have to answer all or any of them. They're just what will be helpful to us at this juncture, besides, of course, answering any questions you have for us, is to understand how this presentation compares to your on-the-ground perspective, because the data can only tell us so much. You all are the experts on this city. And so that will help us. We can bring together your feedback with our data, and again, help to inform both our land use plan alternatives as well as what we'll put into the economic development element. So I can leave this up. And with that, thank you for your attention and look forward to the conversation.
So we're going to facilitate this just like we have the other conversations, just a roundtable group. You guys have been very conversational and willing to share your ideas, so I don't think we're going to have to do a lot of prompting, although we certainly can. We really, again, as I've said from the beginning, we want to do a lot of listening, and really, to Julie's point, ground truth, the information that was presented as part of this report, so we can start to kind of fact check that against the on-the-ground realities. So we're going to leave these questions up, but don't feel limited to these. I certainly am also interested to hear any specific findings that they had presented that were particularly intriguing to you. And certainly, of course, if you have any other questions or points of clarification, they're here to do that. So with that, I know, Adam, you had some notes here.
Okay, how did you come by well, define trade area, first off. I think it's way too small. It didn't include, you mentioned Hemet, but you didn't really include Hemet San Jacinto, which has changed dramatically in the last 5 years. And there is that county to the south. We don't like to talk about them, I guess, too much. But anyway, there is Fallbrook and Encinitas, San Marcos, and those guys. Escondido.
So
how come they weren't included?
Two things. One is the, I don't know if this is working. The trade area is, as we define it, it's really your sort of peer/competitive set. So it's the area in which you have sort of an economic conglomeration, so to speak, or a lot of economic activity that's going on within this particular geography. Now, I don't disagree that we could have made the geography larger, but the larger the geography gets, the more you begin to dilute these dynamics, and you're not necessarily getting at what your real role is in your sort of sub-regional economy. But that is also why we look at the county as well, because we want to see some of those larger geographic dynamics. The other reason we picked this trade area is because it's the trade area that was used in the two other studies that were done for the city, and so we wanted to be somewhat consistent with those analyses as well. But trade areas are kind of an art. They're not a science, and so I don't disagree. Certainly, we see that you have a lot of incommuters from Hemet and from from North San Diego County. So there could be another trade area that might, give some other perspectives in terms of what your role is in the larger economy.
Trade areas can be defined really by the industry or the attraction. Retail, our capture area, can be as far north as Moreno Valley. Industrial, well, obviously we're running out of industrial space, so where's the industrial space? It's Hemet, San Jacinto Valley. And a little bit of Lake Elsinore. And if you work off of or compare in trade areas stuff that is 4 years old or 8 years old, well, 8 years old, you wouldn't even look at Lake Elsinore, and now Lake Elsinore is a very dynamic city. And so is this really an accurate picture with that trade area is what I'm really calling into question.
I think it's a fair comment, and certainly, as I said, there's no hard and fast rules, and there are other dynamics out there that could, certainly impact your economy going forward.
You talk about the significant shortage of industrial warehousing opportunities. That's a broad category. And, you know, we see an awful lot of development along the I-215 corridor, in fact, you know, fulfillment centers and the like, these huge, you know, 2 million square foot buildings that don't employ very many people but produce an awful lot of truck traffic. What do we really mean? Looking at Temecula specifically, where do you think that opportunity is?
Well, to be frank, warehousing and fulfillment centers are kind of the growing sector within that larger industry. And you are correct, they're not always huge job creators, but they, you know, they do bring certain economic activity. I think given your location along the 15, that seems like a, you know, a real opportunity. That's not to say that there isn't also opportunity for some, I wouldn't say heavy industrial, because we don't see even a lot of heavy industrial really anywhere, but more light industrial kind of, you know, food processing, kind of maybe some more like R&D type of development. We see some of that in North San Diego County. We see some of that in the San Jacinto Valley. So I think there can be opportunities. You know, again, your location along the highway is part of what gives you, you know, positions you well for that kind of development.
You know, I would question, I understand that the opportunity is there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's attractive to us as a city.
Absolutely.
To our residents. So I think that needs an awfully hard look as we proceed with the general plan update to really define what we're talking about there and what do we want to see. And if we have a shortfall, maybe that's okay.
Sure. I think, yeah, that's why this is not the only thing that determines your land use plan. It's just supposed to be informative, but it is supposed to align with what are your city's preferences and goals as a community.
I had a question. I wanted to see in the previous slide, you had repositioned retail zones and you used Old Town as an example. Could you expand upon that?
I could, but I would sort of prefer if maybe we held that for the next presentation, where so there was another consultant that did an extremely deep dive into your retail industry and opportunities for growth and kind of subsectors. And so I don't really want to say anything out of turn as it relates to that very extensive study.
And that's the next presentation tonight, so you won't have to wait much longer.
Yes,
That's just a few minutes.
Within the next few minutes.
But with that said, more generally speaking, the reference to the for example in Old Town, I think the idea is starting to set the stage for an understanding as to, you know, what is the development pattern desired by the community in Temecula over the next 20 years, and are there areas absolutely that align with demand or with the city's priorities or objectives where this is the opportunity to really change the trajectory of where you're headed. So we can look at what those opportunities are on paper, but if those are, you know, consistent or reflective with the community's vision, that's where we get the opportunity at this juncture to decide which direction are we going to try and you know, nudge the city or nudge the private market into. So using Old Town as an example, you know, just, you know, what are some opportunities or challenges facing those types of that special area? But then there are certainly other retail areas of the city that, you know, have the opportunity to have a deeper dive as part of that conversation. So seeing, for example, the data showing that there's, you know, more than enough retail space to accommodate the needs of Temecula's long-term residents. Is there too much? Is there not enough? Is it just the right amount? Are we okay with that? Is it, you know, are we okay having an oversupply and that's fine with us, or are there going to be ways to improve or, you know, make that more viable? So we will dive deeper into the retail side of things, but in terms of the geographic location, also for the industrial uses, we can, we'll have maps next month.
Okay, and another part of the question is, with the development of, say, Menifee, there's a lot of, you know, they want retail, they want great restaurants. So, yeah, we want a Bass Pro Shop and things like that. So it's getting more competitive So I guess my question to the city is, do we have incentives to entice people to be here?
I feel free to answer it and to lead a conversation related to that if you so want.
Well, we do have a few incentives, and that's for auto dealers and for hotels, luxury. We are looking, though, at analyzing, because we do see a seepage of our retail because we have cities next door and north of us that are, developing into they're taking our retail, and that's, they're not really taking our retail, but our seepage is going into those cities. So we are looking to see how we can incentivize without losing too much, but gaining the retail that we want, so.
I remember having a conversation with the Forest Cities, the developer of the Promenade Mall, shortly after it opened, and many of us weren't terribly happy with the fact that where they positioned the mall in terms of our citizens and the income levels that were higher than anywhere else in the area, and whether they missed the mark. And a couple of years later, they came back and said, you know what, you were right. We did feel like we missed the mark. And so I think that still exists. I'm not sure where our average incomes are now. Maybe that's changed. But we should be, at the risk of sounding elitist, we should be the high-end center of Southwest Riverside County, and we're not. So I think that's where there's an opportunity.
Absolutely. That is our number one priority, to stay high-end and to get the tenants that aren't the $5 store, but to get the tenants that are high-end and keep that. Temecula is a destination, a tourist destination. We will always be a tourist destination so long as we have wine country, and so long as we have our charming old town, and so long as we have Visit Temecula Valley. And so with that, higher end comes, but we have to chase it.
It's challenging, I think, because with the changes coming about in retail, with so much of internet sales taking up our traditional sales, there's a lot of vacancies. And when there are vacancies, the owners of the properties want to rent them, and they're going to rent them to whoever pays the rent. So it gets a little challenging.
I don't want to give away the next presentation, but I think your comment is very much in line with the conclusions of the next consultant.
Can I just ask not so much a question, but a consideration? I don't know if is on the table, if it should be, if it's anything we've talked about at all. A couple of other cities that I work in, for the general plans, a lot of these trends, they go up, they go down. 1 year retail's a hot ticket item, we all want it. Another year, there's shortage of industrial for whatever. A lot of it's economic driven. In some of these areas and other cities and other communities, rather than actually change a general plan land use to kind of go with the flow as it changes, they use an overlay, a zoning overlay that allows the city to be able to present options for zoning that is not consistent with what the general plan is, but that's beneficial to the city. Do you guys have anything like that? Have we talked about it, explored it? Will that be on the table at all?
Yeah, in our current general plan, we have a few mixed overlay zones, and we also have an affordable housing overlay zone that covers 100 acres. So we have utilized that tool, and I think we're definitely inclined to do that in the future.
Retail might be a good spot if it's an overage to maybe utilize some of your shortages. So, okay, thank you.
I just want to add one more thing. So as a tourism bureau, sometimes we will get tourism-related businesses that we communicate with. They're really excited about opening a business here, but then down the line, they get very frustrated, and sometimes they abandon that dream in Temecula because of the frustration of working in the planning department. It's taking too long, things like that. So I just want to make that comment, and I'm hoping we could be a more business-friendly city that helps and encourages and supports these new businesses.
I just wanted, one of the questions, what type of housing are in demand in our community? And we touched on it. We know single-family residents, we know condominiums, we know move-up buyers, those that are wanting a larger home, and then we have those that, the empty nesters that's going to downsize. But what about, like Camatero said, what about something that's truly going to keep those young adults that just got their associate degree or their bachelor's degree in this community? What would we even start with studios or smaller development for affordable, truly affordable housing for our young adults? Where would we start with that?
There is something I've been reading about. It's called incremental development or micro development, and it has to do with ADUs, duplexes, cottage homes. There's a new law took effect last year, was Senate Bill 1123, allows single-family land to be subdivided into small, fee-simple lots, like very small. But it's a ministerial process. It's in effect. It's being done in some of the bigger cities. Could be done here. You get a modest-sized house. You get a small piece of a lot. It's not a condo. You don't share the wall. You don't share the roof. You don't have CCNRs or HOA, but you got your own little modest starter home.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, it's called the Starter Home Revitalization Act, and I see it being done in some places.
Okay. Thank you for that.
What did anyone find particularly surprising about the presentation? Is there anything that hasn't come up? Was it surprising to see the inflow and outflow of employment? I always think that that's a great graphic just to see visually on the map, especially, knowing that Temecula is such a jobs-rich community, and you can look around and see that with your own eyes, but to see there are, so many more people coming in than there are people leaving, and most of those people are driving a car. So I think, dovetailing with some of the conversations at our last meeting on mobility and congestion and traffic, all of these topics are so related. So once we start pulling the thread on one of these, we certainly see its relationship to the others. But that's one of the motivating factors to kind of think of economic development as it relates to mobility as well, and as an opportunity to help find ways to reduce congestion by even matching a few of those jobs and residents a little bit differently. So I always enjoy kind of seeing what those dynamics look like.
For perspective, I don't know, it was probably 20, 25 years ago, we did a jobs housing analysis, and we had 0.6 jobs per resident, and now it's over 1. So we've made great strides.
Yeah, it's significantly over 1 as well.
Whether
Almost
they're
1.5.
they're a good match for our population,
Yeah.
that's always going to be hard,
Yeah.
But we really have done quite well. Everybody says we've got to create jobs, we've got to create jobs. We've been doing it for many years.
Yeah.
You touched on something, talk about data information. About 2002, 2004, a survey came out that people would take a 15% pay cut if they could work closer and not have to be on the freeway. So you did capture that, which I compliment. Also, if you want to get a deeper dive into transportation, inflows and outflows, the Western Riverside Council of Governments, Chris Gray presented, what was it, 2 months ago?
August 26th.
Thank you. Okay, 5 months ago. God.
20.
Exactly. It's called 10 Myths About Travel and Commuting, and in fact, I think that's where you crib one of those slides. And very helpful, give you an idea, not only how much traffic, but what kind of traffic. A third of our traffic is commuter traffic. A third of it is day-to-day, just driving around because of work, plumbers and such, going to and from, jobs. And then a third is more or less, just taking kids to school and bopping around. And so it gets into a much deeper dive that I recommend you guys take a look at it. And the city does have that handy, and I also have a copy if you ever need it.
I just want to add to that. Thank you, Adam, because I was actually Googling it. That's why I remember the date. That report I will send to Matt, that he can probably send it out to all of you. There's a slide in that report that shows Temecula has the most, and he researched from San Diego to Orange County. Do you remember that slide? And the slide shows that we have, do you have it there? The most work-job balance in all of the cities. So it's a very interesting slide, but we have, no matter what city you live in, there's commuters. And it's just across the board. But the city of Temecula has more people who live here and work here than most of all the other cities. It was a very interesting slide. I'll send the whole report.
Yeah, we'll share the presentation after the meeting.
Betsy, I love that you brought that up, and that was really interesting to me, too. But the one thing I did note is that the commuters that are commuting into the city are people from retail accommodations and food services, and those individuals are integral to the success of a city. And so I think it's noteworthy to really reflect on the types of people that are commuting, where the other commuters are going to higher paid jobs outside of the city. So affordable housing to address so people don't have to be on those freeways is important to me.
Okay, well, we had expected this presentation to kind of percolate with you for a little while, so we'll have an opportunity after our third and final presentation to have, any outstanding questions or comments, especially if they are illuminated by the additional information you receive. And then, like I had said, today's conversation is really about laying the foundation, getting some data points to help think about over the next month, and we'll have some homework for you to be preparing for as we get into that conversation on land use planning and community design and revitalization. So it's okay that this conversation is kind of just sitting with you for a little while. It's going to take some time, but certainly any other comments, and we'll take some comments now, and then we'll also take them again at the
Okay,
end.
I just had another question.
Yeah,
Because I
absolutely.
did my homework. So my other question is, number 3, are there particular areas of the city that are underserved? And I know we always talk about west of the 15. What is it that, and also apartment buildings that we have, the older apartment buildings, those tend to be residents that are underserved. What is it that we can do to focus on those areas to make sure they're getting the quality of life that other people in Temecula are?
I think that's a great question, a great point to bring up. I'd be curious to hear from the GPAC what they think
Yeah.
we can do.
Yeah, GPAC, let's hear. Because we know it exists.
Are you asking, is that side of town have enough retail?
Not only
Enough,
retail, just services.
Yeah.
Definitely,
The
yeah.
answer is no. Yeah, I mean,
We know they
drive
have
it.
Old
The answer is
Town.
no.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. You brought up west of the 15. I think when you look at future residential development, both in Old Town and Uptown, you start to look ahead. There's no grocery store west of the 15. There's
Yeah.
also no
banks or
no
anything like
elementary
that.
school
Correct.
west of the 15. So those are some of the things that are definitely on our mind moving forward and to incorporate into the next update.
Yeah, that's good, because I only asked is because I was at the presentation today that the mayor did. She did a fabulous job, but we're talking about these bike trails, we're talking about, the new skating rink that we just did. I never really hear about stuff over there that's being built or designed, developed for the area of the people that are west over there. They want to be part of that. What if they don't have transportation to get to the Ronald Reagan or all of that? That stuff needs to be in that area too. We need to focus on that area too.
Yeah,
just- they're
it's
part of us.
a little glimmer of hope west of the 15. So when you think of North and Jefferson, there's the new apartments, starts with an M.
Yeah.
Marlowe, and there's some thought being considered to the basin, just to the west of the Marlowe apartments for soccer fields and those types of facilities. So there's also an approved development plan for a gas station that includes at least 4 retail or restaurant spots, so within walking distance, and all of that is connected to the trail network. So I think maps would be helpful for the next conversation with land use, but those are some things to think about.
Okay.
We're definitely thinking about
Okay,
those.
that's good to know, because,
Yeah.
you know, we are one big happy family.
I was just thinking of Sam Hicks Park, and maybe it's time for a real redo there to be more relevant to the
Yes.
population that exists today.
Yes.
That wasn't there, when Sam Hicks came about, which was many years ago.
Isn't there a plan also for the Boys and Girls Club facility or the land and parking lot to be redone and not only expanded for the Boys and Girls Club, but also just a park in that area? I thought there was something, is that ringing any bells?
Yeah, the Boys and Girls Club has a proposal to redevelop that property. They don't own all of it, and there's some land swaps that need to occur, but that is being considered.
But
Wa-
an
Wasn't
area of
that part of
potential.
the deeded property from the town association? Where Rotary Park is and that whole
Yeah.
area,
Yep.
yeah. So I don't know who owns it then.
Well, part of it would be utilizing flood control property. So it's Boys and Girls Club, the Rotary Park, and flood control, and there's like a master plan that would include all three properties and requires a lot of agreements.
This may be sacrilege, but as we approach, whether it's at ICSC or just at your local developer, as you're trying to approach retail, are you coming to them and just saying, here's the numbers we project from Temecula? Or do we also include those guys to the north that have, 2,000 units now on Jefferson and on Marietta Hot Springs, either in development or already built, to say, hey, listen, this is a great spot that would serve both communities? Do we ever kind of do that, or is that not kosher?
No, we absolutely do. We absolutely do, yes. And we attend ICSC, I know Jeff would remember this, every year, and we hustle, and yeah.
The new development west of us, is there parks or schools incorporated in that?
Directly west of Old Town in Altair, yeah. That property is entitled for 1,500 units. I think at build-out, it's going to be right around 1,000, but it includes the Western Bypass, which has a Class 1 trail, and then also there's a series of parks throughout the development. And in the center, if you were to walk out City Hall and cross the Main Street Bridge, there'll be a grand staircase that goes up to a central park there.
But no school, elementary schools?
There
or
was a
anything?
school that was planned and actually offered to the district that they declined to take for a future school site.
Are the parks accessible to the public, or are they behind a gate?
No, all of the parks will be accessible to the public.
I want to make two quick comments about areas that may be a little bit underdeveloped, and I know we've talked about them before, but I have a 30-year-old daughter, and all of her friends, her peer group, have all moved out of the area. And so I talked to them over the holiday about what the barriers were and why they moved, and to them, there's not enough to do here. And so I just think it's noteworthy for us in drawing new, in our the way we view Old Town, all those kind of things. I'd personally rather have my daughter here in town, in Old Town, instead of going to San Diego or LA on the weekends and seeking things that young people enjoy doing within our community. And the other thing I just wanted to give a plug for, I know we've done an amazing job to some degree, but just continuing to attract the arts. I think it's an important part of our community and our development.
I think what we'll do now is bring up our next presentation. I'd like to introduce Mary Cervantes. She is our Temecula Valley Entrepreneurs Exchange Manager.
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, everyone. As he mentioned, I'm Mary Cervantes. I'm a senior management analyst with the City of Temecula's Economic Development Department. And tonight, I'm going to discuss our Temecula Overview Report, a study that we finalized late last year, 2025. And really, it's an in-depth analysis of our retail industry and profile. So Julie touched on this, but to provide some backstory, last year our department engaged Beacon Economics and HDL to build on the findings of the 2024 Kaiser Marston Associates Land Use Economic Opportunity Study conducted by the city. That study noted that Temecula may face a reduction in future retail space, which could result in an estimated $2 million decrease in sales tax revenue in years to come. So as we know, sales tax is our number one source of revenue for the city and a primary focus for us. And so that underscored the need for immediate and strategic action to protect this revenue stream. We understand that while Temecula's retail environment and population, housing remains relatively balanced today, market trends and development patterns, such as in cities just north of us, indicate a growing imbalance in the future if we don't take those proactive steps. So with all that said, this Temecula Overview Report provides a comprehensive retail analysis of the city of Temecula to evaluate historical performance, identify market strengths and gaps, and recommend strategies that support long-term economic vitality and fiscal sustainability. So the presentation I'll give tonight will be high-level overview, just a quick, brief overview of the findings outlined in that overview report, and identify some of those opportunities you've been talking about for the city to help mitigate potential revenue losses. So as seen on this slide, the purpose and the scope of the HDL analysis is a comprehensive retail market assessment, regional benchmarking with neighboring cities. This includes, to talk about that trade area, we're talking about Marietta, Lake Elsinore, Wildomar, and Menifee, as did the presentation before. Retail industry employment profile and wage analysis, commercial real estate assessment, consumer demand and retail leakage analysis, a housing retail dynamics evaluation, submarket performance analysis, and the development of targeted actionable recommendations. In 2024, Temecula continued to shine as a regional economic leader, generating $47.4 million in point-of-sale tax revenue and achieving an impressive $419 in sales per capita. That's double of our neighboring cities, and that's really driven by our automotive and transportation sectors, vibrant retail and hospitality industries, and our expansive 8.3 million square foot of retail inventory. And of course, the experiential draw of destinations like Old Town and Wine Country that attract both regional and tourist spending. So on this next slide, you'll see our top 25 sales tax producers. A majority are represented by our auto dealers alongside a mix of retail shops. The detailed report reveals performance by category and the significant role of non-resident spending. For example, in the auto sector, where we see 87.1% of sales come from non-residents. Notable here as well are lower performing areas such as food and drug and building and construction also represent opportunities for growth. On this slide here, we'll look at business trends by subregion. Just looking at the Promenade now has 17 fewer retailers than it did 5 years ago, and that's a time frame of 2019 to 2024, which is a 23% decline. But non-retail uses here have grown 11%, adding 172 jobs. Jefferson Avenue shows a similar pattern. Retail employment is down 9%, yet non-retail jobs have increased more than 14%, and that's looking at about 700 positions, as the corridor shifts towards mixed commercial uses. Despite some of these changes, demand for retail space citywide is still strong. Our vacancy rate is about 3.6%, which is the lowest in the region, and retail rents are rising more than 14%, which is the highest in the region, just in the past year. And these trends exhibit that traditional retail is slightly tightening and diversified commercial sectors are continuing to grow. So I'm going to switch over to retail leakage, and retail leakage, shortly defined as indicates consumer spending outside of our city market, as we were discussing earlier. Our largest market gap currently is in the electronic shopping and mail order sales, where we see a $453 million shortfall, which is nearly 89% of our spending is leaving the city. We also have unmet demand in special food services with a 75% gap. Restaurants, both full and limited service, show an 87% shortfall, signaling opportunities for more variety in cuisines and high-end establishments, as we've been discussing. Home furnishing stores show another $14 million in unmet demand, and these are just to name a few of the industry areas here, but on this next slide, we have over 20 industry areas where we have a shortfall. And so I'll give you just a second to review that, but you see we have the specialty food stores, gas stations, home furnishings, used merchandise, and so on and so forth. So I'll leave that slide up for just a second for you to take a look. I'll move on here. So switching gears over to retail employment, the chart on this slide shows how our retail employment by subsector has shifted over the past 5 years. Again, that's that 2019 to 24 timeframe. The green bars highlight our growth sectors, which include general merchandise, clothing and jewelry, food and beverage, and sporting goods, while the red bars show our declining sectors, including furniture and electronics, gas stations, and the category labeled other retail, which is broken down in the final report as to what types of businesses, industries those are. These declines likely reflect the changes in online shopping, changing consumer behavior, and the closure of some of our big box stores here in Temecula, like Best Buy and Forever 21. Overall, the takeaway here is that Temecula still remains strong in everyday good and experience-based retail, while more traditional retail categories are contracting. Now, this graphic here shows that retail employment trends by subregion, and the analysis centers on Jefferson Corridor, Old Town, and the Promenade, which are the 3 subregions where most of our retail activity is concentrated, of course. And when comparing retail wages across these subregions, Jefferson Corridor reports the highest average at about $47,600 per year, while the Promenade roughly about $29,000 a year, and Old Town retail wages are about $25,000 a year. So looking at retail employment trends, Old Town has experienced a 16% decline in retail jobs, while Jefferson Avenue saw a smaller decline of about 9%. Despite these decreases, both subregions show growth in non-retail sectors, 11% in Old Town and more than 14% along Jefferson, which is over 700 jobs added. And that really indicates broader economic diversification in this area. So a regional overview, just to summarize some of the things we've talked about and to add some more notes. Temecula, again, remains the primary economic and retail anchor of Southwest Riverside County, with more than 8.3 million square feet of retail space and major retail destinations such as the Promenade and Old Town that continue to draw shoppers from across the region. The city continues to outperform peer communities in sales per capita and overall retail activity, reinforcing its long-standing role as a regional hub. However, current trends signal emerging risks that could disrupt this balance. Neighboring cities, as we've been discussing, are experiencing faster population and housing growth and are actively expanding their retail capacity, intensifying regional competition. At the same time, Temecula faces limited remaining land for new retail development, increasing the importance of strategic land use, reinvestment, and repositioning of existing retail assets. While consumer demand in Temecula is strong, supply is not keeping pace, resulting in the retail leakage to the surrounding jurisdictions, as we saw in the previous slides. Over the past 9 years, Temecula's sales tax market share has declined by approximately 10%, or about 1% annually, underscoring the risk of a downward trend in this area. Additionally, shifts in retail absorption could lead to a surplus of underutilized retail space. Taken together, these dynamics point to a potential future imbalance in Temecula's retail market, posing a clear risk to sales tax revenues, again, the city's primary revenue source, and reinforcing the need for proactive strategies to maintain competitiveness and fiscal stability as the region continues to evolve. Some opportunities. So with these market dynamics in mind, several retail categories present strong opportunities to strengthen and diversify the business landscape. The city is well positioned to attract regional and high-end retail shops, as we discussed, along with specialty food services such as catering, food trucks, and mobile concepts that respond to evolving consumer preferences. There's also continued demand for neighborhood-serving retail, including florists, gift and office supply stores, and other miscellaneous retailers that support local retail clusters. In addition, full and limited service restaurants across a range of cuisines and price points show ongoing unmet demand. Again, a focus on high-end restaurants there. Other opportunity areas include home furnishings and furniture, used and specialty merchandise, books and music, luxury auto dealers, and related services, sporting goods, and specialty retail, all of which can help us better capture consumer spending. A Bass Pro Shop for sure. And so in closing, this report gives us a clear direction on what the next step should be. We need to refine our tenant mix, invest in destination-driven retail, and stay responsive to the evolving consumer trends. That means focusing on modernization, experience-based retail, and mixed-use redevelopment, expanding restaurant offerings and specialty retail, and leveraging our tourism. Also, a major priority is the Promenade Temecula, which we brought up. So supporting our region's only mall and our strongest competitive advantage. It draws customers from Southwest Riverside County and even North San Diego, but like successful malls nationwide, it must continue to evolve. Adding elements such as more dining, entertainment anchors, open-air elements, and family-friendly experiences will be key. As neighboring cities add new housing and retail, we must reinvest strategically, and with limited land available, we must optimize the land use, encourage selective infill and redevelopment, and strengthen our industrial logistics sectors to support those quality jobs and daytime population. Again, we remain strong as a regional retail hub and tourism hub with strong demand, rising incomes, and a growing base of younger families. But to maintain that leadership, we need to attract the right businesses, enhance our destination assets, and adapt to a changing retail landscape. And we do have the Temecula overview report available and happy to share if anyone's interested. That concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions. Adam?
Well, you asked for higher-end retail, but that's exactly not what's happening throughout the region. We lost Nordstrom, we lost, for a variety of reasons. Williams-Sonoma wasn't really because of the region so much as the deal that they were sitting on with their lease. But any idea, any insight into why our region, specifically Southwest Riverside County, seems to, even as far north as Riverside, seems to be losing its higher-end retail? If you need to shop for some of that fancy stuff, you're going to Palm Springs, up to Rancho Cucamonga or into Orange County.
And online. I think that's
And
one of our
online.
biggest competitors. So creating the environment and atmosphere to show these businesses that we have the high wage and the right market to attract some of these businesses is going to be key.
Do retailers look at, well, they obviously look at income, right? But do they look at the number of population at a certain level of income to say, okay, there are enough people that can support that Mercedes dealership? Or are they looking now more at an average of the incomes that are in an area and say, yeah, there's the rich folks that might buy the Mercedes, but this may actually just be a Ford, not just a Ford, but a Ford region or whatever, more
I
of
think
a
it's a combination. I think
middle-class
proximity to where we are located in Temecula, in between the large metro cities, gives us an opportunity to meet the demand in all of these neighboring cities, and all the way up, like you said, all the way up to Riverside.
Sometimes it's really interesting what retailers look for and how they judge. I remember having a meeting a number of years ago trying to attract Whole Foods here, and they told me their criteria was what percentage of the population ride bicycles. And it makes sense, when you think about it, but it was really odd. So, learning some of those nuances is certainly can be beneficial to our efforts to bring them here.
So to buoy our retail dollars, do we need to be rethinking some of our spaces that are existing retail centers and saying, it may be time to say goodbye to that Home Goods or whatever that store is that used to be Kmart. And that might have to be a fulfillment center. And all the
That could
horrible
be
things
part
that
of it,
come with that.
yes. That could definitely be part of it, is redevelopment, selective infill, for sure. Yeah, taking our existing brick and mortars and changing them out. Yeah.
And one opportunity that is not up there, but I think it is in our report, if I remember, is it's finding those super regional businesses, such as where they would only place one in the region, and then you're good. And I mean like IKEA, you know, that would be a super regional, an amazing opportunity for Temecula. It's finding those super regional, it's finding also the price point that Temecula residents, and I think Jeff Camartero, you said it right, where every retailer looks for something different, and it's
Yeah.
very, it's nuanced.
Yeah,
So.
and the problem with IKEA, I'd love to see an IKEA here, but they require a tremendous amount of space. Where do we put them? You know, we don't really have the land.
Another large opportunity would be to look into luxury auto dealers. We have a robust auto dealer district and community, and again, they're our #1 sales tax generator. So attracting luxury auto dealers would be a hit, and allowing them to go into some of those, you know, commercial zones would be an opportunity.
My understanding is that Bass Pro Shop did in fact look at this area, not necessarily Temecula, and they had a deal on the table and they couldn't make it work. But, you know, the area does remain attractive to that super regional.
Then tell them to come to Temecula.
I'm not sure they have the spot.
And if we put in an IKEA over Bass Pro Shop, I'm moving.
You showed that retail is down. I wanted to see if you know the comparison to Riverside County or other neighboring counties. How do we compare? I'm sure they're also down.
I don't have comparison with other counties specifically on this report, but comparing to nationwide, we're pretty much aligned. Our retail is aligned with nationwide, so I think that gives us a message as far as county to county. We're running pretty close.
And do you think that's temporary? Do you think it's just because people are holding on to the money and certain economical times might be causing it? Or do you think it's a trend?
I think there's a huge shift in our market over the last decade or so to online shopping, and I think that's affecting everyone. So I think that's one of the trends, or the shifts, I should say.
Yeah, I think that's one of the major reasons that retail is down nationwide. Amazon has changed the dynamics for shopping.
But also people are wanting more experiences, and I think shopping like you have on there, experiential retail offerings, people are still loving that. So many people do both.
Does the city receive any sales tax from online sales?
It depends, I'll let you. Yeah.
That answer is yes, we do. It goes to the county pool, and then it's somewhat divided amongst the cities.
So is it equal to brick and mortar, or is it
Not,
substantially less?
you know, to have our finance director kind of respond to that. We can do so on email, but I don't know exactly the nuances of the online retail, but it is less.
But steady.
Who approaches companies like IKEA or Mercedes to try and schmooze them?
Our department does.
Your department does?
We do, yeah.
How much available land do we have for retailers?
I think it was in the previous presentation, you had the available land.
I have to look, it's in the Kaiser Marston report. I think they had an actual number. It was like pretty large number.
Sorry, it's substantial.
And is it all over the city, or is there one concentrated area?
Is there a map?
So, yeah, there is a map. Just to described for the GPAC now, I think a lot of it is along Temecula Parkway. A lot of it is up Jefferson Avenue to the south of Old Town, along Yanez and the various shopping centers. It's getting smaller though, and now it's more spread out and I think more fragmented, kind of smaller commercial pieces throughout the city. For instance, down on Pechanga Parkway across from the casino, there's a couple of parcels that were identified for neighborhood and community commercial in Wolf Creek that were never developed, and Pechanga now owns those. In addition, in Harveston, there was a commercial site that was identified next to the Welcome Center. That was a commercial site, still zoned commercial, has never developed. At Summers Bend on Butterfield Stage Road, at the corner of Butterfield and Murrieta Hot Springs, there's a commercial site. That hasn't developed yet. So these smaller pieces are just kind of hanging out there, and I think that's something for the GPAC to think about between now and the next meeting is as you drive around and you think about these various areas, what could they be? What should they be? Are they underutilized? Could they redevelop? You're really going to have an opportunity to kind of steer the ship at the next couple of meetings, and I'd like you to start thinking that way in terms of what could we do, what should we do?
I guess one question is, with redevelopment long gone now, what are the tools available at our disposal? Could we go to Brookfield and say, hey, listen, we would like to help you blow the roof off of this thing and make it open air, or help you build an arena next to it, or whatever? Is it a CSD? Is it what are those tools? And you don't have to answer right now, but that's something to think about, is what mechanisms could we use to develop the Little Professor area, whatever it was called.
Well, to add to that, when you look at the mall and you think about all of the surface parking surrounding the mall and the potential for development there, that may complement MSJC. So there was some talk about affordable housing, maybe higher density housing. It's not often that a city gets a small university next to the mall. That just doesn't happen very often, and that's here. And I think we need to think about capitalizing on that. The complementary uses between the mall and the university, and maybe what we could do over there.
I had a question. You mentioned the two parcels that are by Pechanga in the Wolf Creek area. A couple of years back, as homeowners, we received this letter that they wanted to build houses they were houses, single-family resident, and then the bottom level was going to be like stores, retail, restaurants, and all of that. And then all of a sudden, we heard that Pechanga had purchased that. Is there any talks of what they're going to develop with that, or just keeping it sacred for them?
Not that I'm aware of, but maybe.
Not lately.
Okay. And probably not likely either, yeah, okay.
Well, I can address that if I may. Sure. Yeah, so I work for Pechanga, and the plan is to do some retail, do some potential pharmacy and a box store, maybe looking at something like a Trader Joe's or something, a high-end grocery venue, and then some high-level executive-style housing, leasing, like more like rentals, leasing space. So not necessarily single-family homes, but a little more high-density homes.
That would be perfect, and I can tell you why. Well, several reasons, but one is because of the hospital and the residency program. They're always looking for nurses and for physicians to just, transition out after 2 years or 3 years. So that would be perfect for them close by.
Yeah, there's some issues with the water, providing water for that, so we're working through those with the local water district. So.
Awesome. And I would welcome a Trader Joe's too, definitely. Thank you.
All right, so with that, thank you so much for all your contributions tonight. We know that there's a lot of information, as we mentioned, throughout. We'll send some of those reports and materials to you so you kind of sit with them, review them, and think about them in advance of our next meeting. So I do have 2 housekeeping items for you at the very least. The first is a reminder of our meeting in February. That's going to be on Thursday, February 12th. So second Thursday of every month. We're going to be here, back in this room, back in these seats at 6 o'clock on Thursday, February 12th. Our topic that night is going to be land use planning. We will likely be working in small groups. We will have maps. We will have a part 2 of the conversation we've had tonight. So thank you for giving us some things to think about as we prepare for that discussion as well. The second is on the other piece of paper besides your agenda that's sitting at your desk, a vision and values survey that we're asking you as ambassadors of the general plan update to please promote to your friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, coworkers, anyone that has any relationship to Temecula. We would love to hear their insights. This is also available on the project website. It's available on the city's website. The city is promoting it on all of its social media channels and so on and so forth. But you are able to help us by sharing this via word of mouth or via those links. So we'll be sending you an electronic link to that as well. It's really intended as an opportunity to supplement those in-person open houses that we hosted at the end of September, early October. We understand not all members of the community were able to attend those in person. So some of these questions are similar to those that were posed at those open houses. So if you were able to attend those, you'll feel some familiarity with that. But we hope to expand the input that we've received from the community by allowing this online opportunity as well. It's available in both English and Spanish, so you can see a little drop-down area as well if you have anyone that would like to take it in either language. The goal is to collect those responses by the end of this month. So if you could do your best to share that information over the next week, we'd really appreciate it. It's short. It won't take more than 5 minutes, but it adds a lot of value to hearing from members of the community that might not be able to join us at those in-person meetings as well. And I just checked, and it's only been promoted for a day, and we've got like a solid set of responses already. So it's working, so we're really excited to see that people are taking it and responding well. So with that, any other closing comments, Matt?
I did want to say something that I came across, just an idea. It has to do with economic development, and just an idea that I've seen other cities implement similar to ADUs. They've implemented ordinances for ACUs, accessory commercial units, like at a neighborhood level, a little outbuilding for coffee or a barber shop or something that doesn't generate a lot of parking requirement, and hopefully people can walk to it. But it introduces some degree of business at a neighborhood level. And some city of Pomona just adopted an ordinance like a year ago.
Okay, well, with that, any other closing comments?
Yeah, with that, I just want to thank everyone for their input tonight. A lot of good comments, and I encourage you to think about, as you drive around the city the next few weeks in anticipation of our February meeting, what can we do to change some of the land uses or redevelop some of these areas? So with that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.